What happens when you stop telling everyone about your life? 13 Stoic Lessons of Stoicism. As Epictetus once said, we have two ears and one mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. In a world obsessed with oversharing, true power lies in restraint. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you stopped telling everyone everything about your life? What if silence was not weakness, but wisdom? In today's video on Stoic Science, we'll uncover 13 Stoic lessons that reveal how mastering your words can reshape your mindset, reclaim your energy, and protect your peace. If you've ever felt drained after opening up to the wrong people, or questioned whether all this talking is helping or hurting, you're not alone. Drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know. Do you believe silence can be a form of strength? Now, let's begin. 1. Your words shape your identity. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius knew something we often forget in the noise of modern life, that action will always speak louder than words. And yet, in today's world, we live out loud in all the wrong ways. We overshare, we explain, we post, we vent. But the Stoics weren't men of excess speech. They were men of disciplined silence and deliberate expression. They understood that your words are not just sounds. They are sculptors of identity. Every time you speak poorly about yourself, even in jest, you train your mind to believe a narrative that weakens your spirit. And over time, that story becomes your reality. So, what happens when you stop telling everyone about your life? You reclaim your power. You give yourself space to grow without commentary. You stop reinforcing limitations, doubts, and chaos. In Stoicism, the mastery of speech is the mastery of self. The Stoic does not need to be validated through sympathy or applause. He finds peace in his own internal approval. When you practice silence not out of fear, but out of strength, you begin to notice how much energy you've been leaking into conversations that go nowhere. Talking about your failures, your stress, your plans, these things do not move you forward. Often, they keep you trapped in the very identity you're trying to escape. In a world that demands you constantly broadcast your life, the Stoic man chooses discretion. Not because he has something to hide, but because he understands the sacredness of his inner world. Your struggles are not entertainment. Your goals are not public property. Keep them sacred. Guard them like a fire not yet strong enough to withstand the wind. Because the moment you speak of them too soon, they become vulnerable to the opinions, projections, and judgments of others. And if you let too many voices into your journey, you may forget the sound of your own. When you speak less, you observe more. You listen better. You notice the tone behind people's words, the energy behind their actions. This awareness gives you leverage not over others, but over yourself. It trains your emotional control. It sharpens your discernment. The Stoics believed that the wise man speaks because he has something to say. The fool speaks because he has to say something. And so, every word that leaves your mouth should be a reflection of your values, your discipline, your path. For men, navigating leadership, fatherhood, partnerships, or even just surviving the weight of modern expectation, Stoicism offers a path not to escape, but to endure with grace. You do not need to announce your pain to feel it. You do not need to perform your dreams to pursue them. Instead, learn to carry your silence like armor. Let your consistency speak for you. Let your results echo louder than your explanations. If you're a man building a legacy, protecting a family, or just trying to make sense of this complicated world, remember this. Every time you open your mouth, you either build yourself up or tear yourself down. Choose your words like a builder chooses his tools with care, precision, and purpose. Speak as if your soul is listening, because it is. The point is not to be cold or distant. It is to be refined, to be reserved, to be respected. Because when you stop telling people about your life, you don't become mysterious. You become strong. You become a man who doesn't need to be heard to feel. And that, my friend, is the quiet power of the Stoic. Comment below. I am a Stoic. 2. Not everything needs to be shared. Not everything needs to be shared. And in fact, some of the most profound changes in your life are the ones no one sees coming. In today's world, we've been conditioned to narrate every step of our journey, to post our struggles, our goals, and our so-called growth in real time, as if the transformation doesn't count unless it's validated with likes, comments, or applause. But the truth is, real change doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in silence. It's forged in moments when no one is watching, when you're wrestling with your inner demons in the dark, and when your only audience is your own conscience. Stoic philosophy teaches us to be inward-facing, to master our emotions, our intentions, and our discipline, not for display, but for our own liberation. When you stop telling everyone about your plans, your pain, or your progress, something powerful happens. Your energy stops leaking. Your motivation is no longer tied to how people perceive you, but to the quiet, consistent promise you made to yourself. Think about the last time you shared a big goal with someone. Maybe you announced you were going to quit drinking, start a business, or get in shape. At first, the reaction may have felt good. You got praise, encouragement, maybe even admiration. But what followed? Did you follow through? Or did the satisfaction of sharing it rob you of the hunger to actually do it? This is a common trap seeking external recognition before doing internal work. And it's not entirely your fault. Social media platforms reward oversharing. They turn vulnerability into currency and authenticity into a performance. But Stoic philosophy calls you to take a different path. It invites you to rise in silence, to become disciplined in private, and to build without broadcasting. You don't need to prove your growth to anyone, not your family, your friends, or strangers online. You only need to know it within yourself. Let me tell you about someone I once knew. He used to share every life update like it was breaking news. A new diet? It was a post. A new relationship? It was a story. A new mindset? It came with a whole thread. But after years of living in this loop, he realized something: he wasn't actually changing. He was just narrating. The performance gave him temporary satisfaction, but no real transformation. So, he went quiet, deleted the apps, focused on his daily habits, and years later, when he reappeared, he was a different man, calm, successful, and at peace. No announcements needed. Have you ever wondered what you would become if you stopped talking and started building in silence? What would your life be like if you spent all the energy you spent explaining yourself on actually growing? The lesson is simple yet profound. True growth requires no audience. The Stoic path is not about impressing others, but mastering yourself. Talk less, do more. And when the time comes for the world to see who you have become, let your presence speak louder than your words. Because in the end, the most powerful transformations are not what we post, but what we live. Show your commitment to this amazing journey by commenting below. Talk less, do more. 3. Let actions speak louder than words. When you embrace a Stoic mindset, you begin to understand that words, while powerful, are not the measure of a person's actions. The daily Stoic way of life encourages silence, not as avoidance, but as strength. In a world obsessed with broadcasting every thought, goal, and intention, there's something remarkably noble about choosing to move in silence. You see, when you talk endlessly about your plans, what you're going to do, where you're headed, the empire you intend to build, you may feel like you're making progress, but often you're only giving yourself a premature sense of accomplishment. The mind starts to reward you for the idea, not the execution. That's why the Stoics, those ancient masters of restraint and reason, urged us to hold back our declarations and instead let our discipline do the talking. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor and philosopher, once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." This wisdom is timeless. Instead of telling the world who you are becoming, quietly become it. Because when the results show up, when the transformation is undeniable, you won't need to explain yourself. There will be no need for validation or applause. The evidence will speak on your behalf. The daily Stoic approach is rooted in self-mastery, and mastery requires focus. Talking disperses that focus. Doing sharpens it. Every time you choose to take action instead of making an announcement, you preserve your energy and keep your momentum sacred. You become less concerned with being seen and more committed to becoming solid. And this shift is powerful. It turns you from someone who needs reassurance into someone who is anchored, regardless of who's watching. It's easy to feel pressured in a society that rewards visibility. But just because the world is loud doesn't mean you have to be. The oak tree doesn't shout while it grows, it rises slowly, steadily, in silence. That's how true character is formed. In unseen hours, in disciplined choices, in moments when no one is clapping. Think about your own life. How often have you spoken too soon about a goal and then felt the weight of unmet expectations or lost motivation? What would happen if you decided today to stop explaining and start embodying? The Stoic mindset isn't about hiding. It's about holding. Holding your vision, holding your standard, holding yourself accountable. Because when your actions are aligned with your values, you don't need to say much. You become a presence, and presence is far louder than performance. So I ask you, what dream or transformation are you ready to work on in silence, away from the noise, the praise, or the judgment? Let your path unfold through action, not announcement. And remember, in the words of Epictetus, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. That is the way of the daily Stoic quiet strength, visible change. If this resonates with you, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. Your journey to Stoic self-mastery and victory continues with each lesson. 4. Change your inner narrative. There's a reason the Stoics emphasize silence not just in conversation, but within the corridors of the mind. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And for many men, the loudest voice in their lives isn't from the outside world, It's the relentless, often critical voice inside their own heads. Stoicism invites you to observe that voice without judgment, but also to take responsibility for what it keeps repeating. What are the stories you've been silently telling yourself when no one else is around? Stories like, "I'll never be good enough," or "Nothing ever works out for me," may feel like facts, but in reality, they're just internal scripts shaped by fear, old wounds, and societal pressure. The Stoic path isn't about suppressing emotion or pretending life is always in your control. It's about changing the way you interpret and respond to what happens. When you shift your inner narrative, you begin to reclaim your power, not in loud declarations to the world, but in the quiet authority with which you hold yourself each day. A man's life changes not when he announces a new goal, but when he rewrites the beliefs that have kept him stagnant. You don't rise because others finally see your worth. You rise because you've stopped arguing for your limitations. In a world obsessed with constant noise, the Stoic man chooses to become the guardian of his internal dialogue. That means replacing thoughts of failure with reflections of discipline, courage, and quiet strength. It means catching yourself in those moments of doubt and saying, "This thought is not who I am. I can choose again." Because your mind is always listening. Every time you repeat a story of helplessness, your subconscious takes note. But every time you rewrite it, every time you say, "I am resilient, I adapt, I move with clarity," your entire inner world begins to shift. And when that shift happens, your outer world follows. Stoicism doesn't promise comfort, it offers clarity. It asks you to be brutally honest with yourself, not to shame, but to awaken. So the next time life hits hard and your mind starts rehearsing a familiar, self-defeating script, stop. Take a breath. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me become the man I'm meant to be? Or is it keeping me locked in who I used to be? That's the real test of a Stoic. He doesn't just endure life. He edits the narrative until it aligns with his deepest principles. And over time, that quiet internal shift becomes louder than any applause or validation from the outside world. Here's a reminder for you. You are not your past, your mistakes, or your fears. You are the author of your thoughts. You are the architect of your inner world. And the sooner you realize that truth, the sooner you will stop giving power to every conversation, every excuse, every complaint. From this day forward, let your inner voice be the voice of dignity, discipline, and unshakable self-respect. Because the strongest men are not those who talk the most, but those who have mastered the silence within. Comment below. I am strong. 5. Words carry weight. Use them wisely. Have you ever stopped to consider just how much your words shape your world? In the noise of daily life, it's easy to forget that what we say isn't just air passing through our lungs. It's power. Every word you speak carries a frequency. Every sentence is a spell you cast, not just into the ears of others, but into the architecture of your own mind. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology confirmed it. According to Stoic philosophy, your words are not just tools for communication, they are tools for transformation or destruction, depending on how you wield them. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But I would add, your thoughts become shaped by the words you speak aloud, again and again. Let me ask you something personal. How often do you catch yourself saying things like, "I'm always overwhelmed," or "Nothing ever goes right for me"? You may not realize it, but those words are like dripping water on a rock. They slowly etch themselves into your nervous system, reinforcing the very emotional states you want to escape. This isn't just poetic metaphor, it's neurological programming. And the most dangerous part? Most of us don't even know we're doing it. Think of a man named Jack. Every time life threw him a curveball, he'd vent to whoever would listen. He thought talking about it helped. He called it being real. But over time, his words became his reality. He became the guy who was always tired, always broke, always unlucky. Not because he was cursed, but because his language trained his focus, and his focus shaped his identity. What began as emotional expression slowly hardened into a mental prison. That's what Stoic philosophy warns us about. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." But what if you're constantly saying to yourself that you're broken, defeated, or unworthy? What does that turn you into? The Stoics weren't emotionless, they were intentional. They believed words should be used like a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. They practiced restraint, not silence, precision, not passivity. You don't have to silence your truth, but you do have to ask, is this language I'm using lifting me or limiting me? Am I reinforcing pain or opening space for peace? There's a quiet kind of strength in someone who speaks only when necessary, who weighs their words like gold before releasing them into the world. That strength isn't loud, but it's respected. In today's world, where everyone is shouting online, being intentional with your speech is a rare and powerful form of rebellion. You reclaim your mental real estate. You honor your inner state. You show up with clarity and presence. And you stop giving your power away in every careless word. So here's your reflection. What story are you telling yourself with your words every day? Is it one that builds you or breaks you? The truth is, Stoic philosophy teaches us that silence is not emptiness, it's preparation. And when you do speak, let it be with purpose. Let it be with poise. Let your language reflect the man you are becoming, not the struggle you're trying to escape. Because in the end, your words don't just describe your life, they design it. Speak accordingly. Did you find this helpful? If yes, please comment yes. If not, please comment no. If not often, please comment sometimes. 6. Not everyone will understand your journey. Not everyone will understand your journey, and the sooner you make peace with that, the more powerfully you'll begin to move forward. One of the deepest mistakes people make during transformation is expecting applause from those who have never walked the path of inner change. But hear me when I say this. Your soul's evolution is not a group project. You do not need validation for something they were never meant to understand. When you begin to awaken, to shift your habits, to question your past, and to walk differently than you once did, it often unsettles the people who have only known the older version of you. And because they cannot see the invisible battles you've been fighting, or the quiet decisions you've made to heal, they judge the surface without knowing the storm. That's why protecting your energy is not selfish. It's sacred. As Epictetus once said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Those words speak directly to the heart of a Stoic mindset, because the daily Stoic doesn't live for praise or validation. The daily Stoic understands that real growth often happens in silence, far from the eyes and opinions of the world. When you prioritize your inner alignment over outer approval, you begin to reclaim your power. And sometimes that means saying less, showing less, and simply being more. You don't owe anyone an explanation for why you've changed, why you've pulled back, or why your priorities have shifted. Growth is not something you have to justify. It is something you embody. It's easy to feel discouraged when your evolution is misunderstood by those closest to you. But remember, people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. If someone hasn't done the inner work, they won't know what your transformation requires. They may misinterpret your silence as distance, your boundaries as arrogance, or your stillness as weakness. But that's not your burden to carry. What matters is your intention, your direction, and your peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That is the core of Stoicism. Quiet, deliberate action that honors truth over popularity. So if today you're walking a path that others don't understand, take heart, you're in good company. Every great thinker, every spiritual seeker, every person who's ever dared to change their life has faced the sting of being misunderstood. But they didn't stop. They didn't explain. They kept moving. Can you do the same? Can you choose your soul's alignment over their approval? Can you be at peace with not being seen, not being clapped for, not being understood? Because the moment you no longer seek to be understood is the moment you begin to understand yourself. And that, my friend, is the real beginning of freedom. When you repeat the question enough, you will achieve a state of freedom. If you are having difficulties in life, this is a saying for you. When one door closes, another door will open. Comment, I am a Stoic if you are ready to become a new person. 7. Talking about change can delay real progress. There's a powerful Stoic lesson that many overlook in today's world of constant updates and public declarations. Talking too much about the change you want can actually delay the change itself. In fact, ancient Stoics believed that inner transformation should be quiet, disciplined, and personal, not performed for applause. When you announce your goals to others, you may feel a fleeting sense of pride or validation. Your brain receives a false reward, a dopamine hit, as if you've already accomplished something just by stating it aloud. But the truth is, nothing has changed. The path still lies ahead, untouched. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. That is the essence of Stoicism, not grand speeches, but quiet strength. When you speak of your ambitions before acting on them, you risk falling into the trap of self-deception. You give yourself credit for a future you have not earned, and that feeling of premature accomplishment can dull your drive. This idea may feel unfamiliar in a culture that encourages you to manifest by speaking things into existence. But the Stoic man does not rely on words to create reality. He uses action. A modern Stoic knows that results speak louder than intention. So when you feel the urge to declare your next big move, pause. Ask yourself, is this for my progress or for someone else's attention? Instead of making announcements, make moves. Let your silence become your discipline. Let the sweat on your back speak louder than any status update. In your career, your relationships, or your self-development, The greatest transformations often happen in the shadows, far from the eyes of others, far from the applause. And when the time comes to reveal what you've built, let it be so clear, so solid, that no words are needed. That's the power of being stoic. In this noisy world, silence is not emptiness. Silence is strength. It is your commitment whispering back to you every day, "We're not done yet." This lesson is not about bottling up or hiding your life. It's about not dissipating your energy and performance. Real growth is quiet, like the roots of a tree deepening beneath the soil before the branches ever reach the sky. As Marcus Aurelius advised himself, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. That's the challenge and the invitation Stoicism offers. So, I ask you, what is one thing you're working on right now that doesn't need to be spoken about, but built in silence? What could you achieve if you stopped talking and started building, brick by brick, in stillness? Drop the need for early recognition. Trade it for the long, quiet path of mastery. That's where real progress lives. That's the Stoic way. What part of this message resonates with you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how this has shaped your journey. 8. Listen more. Talk less. You know, there's a reason why the ancient Stoics placed such high value on silence, and it's not just about staying quiet for the sake of peace. It's about creating space. In the world of Stoic philosophy, listening more and talking less isn't a social trick. It's a fundamental way to preserve your power and elevate your presence. As Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This wasn't a clever quote. It was a guideline for life. And in today's hyperverbal, oversharing world, this lesson is more urgent than ever. Think about the last time you truly listened to someone else, to your environment, or even to yourself. Not just hearing, but listening with full presence. The problem most of us face today is that we rush to speak, to respond, to make ourselves known. We confuse noise with significance, thinking the louder we are, the more we matter. But Stoic philosophy teaches us the opposite. The more composed you are, the more deeply people take you seriously. Let me give you a real-world example. A man named James worked in a high-stakes corporate environment. Every meeting was a battlefield of egos who could speak the most, dominate the room, offer the most opinions. At first, James joined in, believing that visibility equaled value. But one day, after reading about Stoicism, he decided to take a different approach. He stopped trying to be the loudest voice and instead became the sharpest observer. He listened deeply, took notes, and only spoke when he had something meaningful to say. Over time, people began to lean in when he spoke, not because he was loud, but because he had built credibility in his silence. He wasn't just reacting, he was choosing. That's the power of restraint. Silence in the right moments isn't weakness, it's strength under control. It's the same lesson Marcus Aurelius practiced when he reminded himself, the more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. And your words, once released, are outside your control. They can't be unsaid. That's why the Stoic doesn't waste breath on gossip, complaints, or impulsive opinions. Instead, he listens, reflects, and only then responds. So here's a question for you. How would your life change if you learned to speak only when your words were needed, sincere, and kind? What would change in your relationships, your career, or your self-image? Listening more and speaking less doesn't mean silencing your truth. It means increasing your discipline. It's the art of cultivating inner silence so that your outer voice can carry weight. And here's the paradox. By speaking less, you will be heard more. Stoic philosophy invites us to master this art, not for the applause of others, but for the inner peace and clarity it brings. So learn this lesson today. Slow down, observe more, and remember that your silence can be more influential than any speech. Speak less, not because you have nothing to say, but because you have learned the value of saying the right thing at the right time with the right intention. If you find this helpful, comment below. I will apply this in my life. 9. Applause is a dangerous addiction. There's a quiet danger that many people overlook in their journey of personal development, the need for applause. At first, it feels harmless. You do something well, and someone claps. You say something insightful, and someone praises you. Slowly, without realizing it, your compass shifts from internal to external. You begin to measure your progress by the reactions of others, rather than by your own values. This is where the Stoic mindset offers a powerful antidote. Stoicism teaches us that real growth is not about being seen, but about being steady. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, once wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." That quote cuts to the heart of this issue. When you base your actions on how much applause you might receive, you give away your power. Your self-worth becomes fragile, hanging by a thread that anyone else can cut simply by withholding approval. But when you cultivate a daily Stoic practice checking in with your values, reflecting in silence, and acting from principle rather than popularity, you build a strength that no one can take from you. Think of someone training for a marathon. If they only run on days when people are watching, they'll never be ready for the real thing. The same goes for our character. If we only act with integrity when others are there to witness it, is it really integrity? The Stoic mindset demands that we ask ourselves, who am I when no one is watching? What principles do I live by when there is no reward, no recognition, and no crowd to cheer? Seneca reminded us that what you do when no one is watching is who you are. That's the standard. That's the practice. That's the daily Stoic challenge. Because in truth, applause can become a dangerous addiction. It feels good for a moment, but it fades. And if you rely on it to keep going, then you're no longer in control of your journey. You become like a performer, constantly scanning the audience for approval instead of focusing on the craft itself. In a world that increasingly encourages oversharing and constant validation, like comments, followers, the choice to live by inner values instead of outer praise is not just difficult, it's radical. But it's also liberating. Imagine doing something meaningful and not telling anyone. Imagine helping someone quietly without posting it online. That's power. That's presence. And that's what builds the kind of inner peace that applause could never provide. So, the next time you feel the urge to seek approval before taking action, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it aligns with who I am? Or because I want someone else to say it's good enough? That single moment of honest reflection can shift the trajectory of your day, and over time, your entire life? Are you ready to be applauded by your own conscience instead of the distracted crowd? If so, comment below, I am ready. 10. Be selective with your trust. When you begin to live by the principles of Stoicism, something shifts. You start to understand that silence is not emptiness, it's power. It's not about hiding from the world, but about honoring the sacred parts of yourself that don't need to be displayed for approval or shared for validation. In a world obsessed with broadcasting every detail, a Stoic man learns to withhold, to protect, and to preserve. One of the most profound lessons in this journey is the ability to be selective with your trust. Not everyone deserves access to your pain, and not everyone is worthy of hearing your plans. You don't owe the world an explanation for your healing, your vision, or your next step. Like the roots of a tree growing beneath the earth, your strength must first grow in silence, hidden, steady, and anchored before the world sees the bloom. This is not a call to isolation, but to wisdom. Stoicism reminds us that while connection is vital, discernment is power. Sharing your deepest thoughts, vulnerabilities, or future goals with those who have not earned your trust is like giving away your fire to someone who might smother it. The Stoic understands that some truths are meant to be carried, not confessed. Some battles are fought best in quiet, where dignity is preserved and energy is conserved. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." So if your soul is to remain calm, resilient, and sovereign, then your thoughts, especially the ones closest to your heart, must be guarded like a sacred flame. In today's world, where oversharing has become a cultural norm and attention is treated as currency, practicing restraint is not only rare, it's revolutionary. A Stoic man does not announce his every move. He acts with quiet confidence and lets his life speak for itself. He learns to listen more than he speaks, to observe before he reacts, and to consider before he commits. In doing so, he protects his peace from unnecessary drama and his purpose from premature scrutiny. Trust, after all, is not a gift. It's a currency earned through consistency, character, and shared experience. And just as you wouldn't hand a stranger the keys to your home, you shouldn't offer the keys to your soul to someone who hasn't proven they can honor it. So I ask you, who in your life has truly earned the right to witness your vulnerability? Who has shown up not just in your success, but in your silence? Stoicism teaches that the measure of a wise man is not in how loudly he lives, but in how consciously he withholds. You do not need to prove your growth to anyone. The strongest roots grow underground. And the greatest transformations often begin with quiet decisions made in solitude. Speak less. Trust slower. Live deeper. Because your silence is not weakness, it is strategy. And in that silence, you will find clarity, purpose, and strength that cannot be shaken by the noise of the world. If this resonates with you, leave a comment below or simply type, "I don't chase, I attract." This affirmation is more than just words. It's a mindset rooted in Stoic life lessons. 11. Some battles must be fought silently. There are moments in life when silence becomes your greatest strength. When you're on the brink of real deep soul-level transformation, there is a sacredness to that space that must be protected. Stoic philosophy teaches us that not everything needs to be announced, explained, or shared. Some battles are meant to be fought alone, not because you are isolated or unsupported, but because the quiet allows you to align more deeply with your purpose without interference. Think of a blacksmith forging a blade. The heat, the pounding, the sweat, it all happens in private, away from the eyes of the crowd. Similarly, your evolution does not need an audience. Sharing your plans too soon, especially in their fragile beginning stages, invites opinions, doubts, and noise that can erode your resolve. In today's culture of oversharing and constant updates, there's a temptation to declare every intention before it's fully formed. But as Marcus Aurelius reminded us, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. That is the essence of Stoic philosophy. To act with virtue, to move with purpose, and to let your actions speak louder than any proclamation ever could. I remember a man I once knew who quietly began building his business after being laid off from a corporate job. He didn't post about his goals. He didn't explain his plan, and he didn't seek validation. He simply worked in silence, with consistency. A year later, while others were still talking about what they hoped to do, he had built something real. The difference wasn't luck. It was discipline, inner clarity, and the wisdom to protect his energy from the noise of the world. This story illustrates one of the most powerful applications of Stoic philosophy in modern life: the ability to hold space for your own becoming without inviting distractions. So I ask you, what dream, decision, or internal shift are you currently making that deserves your silence? What sacred part of your journey needs protection, not exposure? Sometimes, the most courageous thing you can do is say nothing and keep moving forward. There is strength in restraint. There is power in quiet. And there is growth in the space where only you and your intention reside. This is not about secrecy. It is about sovereignty. When you embrace the Stoic path, you learn to guard your energy like a fortress, not because you're hiding, but because you're building something worth revealing in its time. Living the Stoic philosophy means understanding that words are cheap when not backed by disciplined action. Talking about what you will do creates the illusion of progress, but silent action creates real momentum. Every time you choose action over explanation, you take back control of your story. In a world obsessed with visibility, ambiguity becomes a sacred form of rebellion. Let others be surprised. Let your progress resonate more than any announcement. The lesson here is simple but profound. Not all seeds grow best in the spotlight. Some need darkness, silence, and solitude to take root. So the next time you feel the urge to share your next big step, stop. Ask yourself, do I want to be seen, or do I want to succeed? Stoics choose the latter. Let that guide your path. Comment below, I want to succeed. 12. The noise of the world is not action. In a world that thrives on noise and constant sharing, it's easy to confuse motion with meaning, chatter with clarity, and visibility with value. But the Stoic mindset teaches us something deeper, something more enduring. The noise of the world is not action. It is a distraction dressed as importance. It is energy wasted on endless explaining, updating, and narrating one's life to others who may not truly care or even understand the path you're walking. The truth is, constantly sharing every step, every thought, and every decision with the world doesn't make your journey more real. It just makes it more exposed, and sometimes more diluted. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." His words remind us that true focus doesn't require a stage or an audience. It requires discipline and quiet intention. When you stop telling everyone about your plans, your wins, your struggles, or your daily moves, something powerful happens. You reclaim your energy. You pull it inward, like a bowstring, creating tension that drives real momentum, not the illusion of it. Think about it. How much of your energy do you give away in updates that lead to no real growth? How many times have you felt exhausted, not from the work itself, but from the explaining of it? The daily Stoic doesn't seek applause for every effort. Instead, they embrace the silence where real transformation happens. It's in that stillness, when you're not performing, not persuading, not projecting, that you hear your truest self and begin to act from a place of strength rather than from a hunger for validation. This is where the distinction between noise and action becomes clear. Action is what moves you forward. Noise is what keeps you distracted. Epictetus advised, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That is, stop defending your process to the world. Let people misunderstand you, if they must. Your journey is not a group discussion. It's a personal pilgrimage. And while the world may shout for your constant updates, the Stoic mindset encourages you to build quietly, grow privately, and let your results speak louder than your words ever could. Social media might tempt you to announce every move, but wisdom says, don't. The oak tree doesn't narrate its growth. It simply rises. So ask yourself, who are you doing it for? Are your actions aligned with your values? Or are they just performances for applause that quickly fades? In silence, you find clarity. In withdrawal, you gain perspective. And in stillness, you gather the strength to move with intention. The daily Stoic chooses inner peace over public performance. Because real power is quiet, real growth is humble, and the loudest progress often happens in silence. What would happen in your life if you stopped explaining and started embodying your truth instead? If this resonates with you, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. Your journey to Stoic self-mastery and victory continues with each lesson. 13. If it's truly for you, you won't need to say it. There's something unmistakably powerful about a man who no longer feels the need to explain himself. In a world obsessed with attention, applause, and validation, there's a quiet strength in choosing stillness over spectacle. Stoicism teaches us that the most profound transformations in life are the ones that unfold quietly. You don't need to broadcast your every move, narrate your every breakthrough, or announce your next chapter to anyone. When the change is real, when it comes from the marrow of your being, rather than from a desire to impress, it speaks through your energy, your posture, your daily habits, and your restraint. As Seneca wisely put it, the reward for a good action is having done it. That alone is enough. When a man has truly found alignment with his principles, when he's shed the need for approval and rooted himself in inner conviction, he doesn't seek validation from others. His life becomes the evidence. This is the essence of being Stoic: to live with integrity, not to narrate it. Modern life often tells you to build your brand, to share everything, your goals, your struggles, your victories, because visibility is currency. But what if the currency of a Stoic man is his peace? His clarity, his ability to move in silence and let his actions echo louder than any announcement ever could. The truth is, if something is truly meant for you, whether it's a dream, a mission, or a relationship, it doesn't need to be constantly stated or defended. It will show up in the way you carry yourself, the way you rise early and get to work, the way you stay calm when chaos hits, and the way you stay the course when no one is watching. This kind of discipline is not loud, it's sacred, and it is in that sacred silence that your most powerful evolution unfolds. The philosophy of Stoicism does not demand that you suppress your story. It simply invites you to live it first. Speak less. Do more. Become someone whose growth is so undeniable that it doesn't need a caption. The Stoic path is not about avoiding change or hiding your journey. It's about embodying it so deeply that your presence becomes a testimony. In a society that rewards noise, it takes real courage to be the man who walks the talk without the talk. You don't need to justify your healing. You don't need to explain your distance. You don't need to prove your peace. Let your boundaries speak for themselves. Let your consistency be the evidence. Let your silence be your signature. So the next time you feel the urge to announce your goals or explain your decisions, pause for a moment and ask yourself, who am I doing this for? Is this about alignment, or is it about applause? The Stoic man does not need to be understood to be fulfilled. He knows that if it's truly for him, it will manifest in his life without fanfare, without convincing, and without noise. Can you trust yourself enough to let your life speak louder than your words? That is the invitation Stoicism offers, not to disappear, but to become so present in your values that there's nothing left to prove. Just steady action, just quiet strength, just the kind of transformation that doesn't shout, it simply is. As we wrap up this journey through the 13 Stoic lessons, remember, silence is not weakness, it's power. When you stop oversharing and start embodying the life you envision, you reclaim your energy, focus, and dignity. Stoicism teaches us that true strength lies not in talking, but in doing. So, what will you begin building in silence starting today? Share your commitment in the comments, or simply write, I am a Stoic. From today on, I will stop talking about it and start living it. We'd love to hear your reflections. If this message spoke to you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Stoic Science, and hit the bell so you won't miss the next chapter of your transformation. And before you go, check out the playlist on the screen for more Stoic tools to navigate life with clarity and strength. Keep walking the quiet path, and may you find power in your silence.